Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Jeffords. I'm with Brady Advisors. I appreciate everyone joining on this session of how to maximize value out of leveraging a vCISO service. I want to take time to introduce myself a little bit. Been with Bridge Security Advisors. I've led various roles throughout the cybersecurity industry with 20 years experience, really helping small, medium business and large enterprise transforming companies around in various verticals such as healthcare, finance, tourism, hospitality, as well as government. Within Bridge, I'm their chief revenue officer that's in charge of partnerships, marketing, as well as the sales of Bridge Security Advisors. I also have, as you can see on camera, Bill Lissy. He's a key contributor with establishing frameworks. He's a lead vCISO of Bridge Security Advisors, a long history with being in the CISO role, and he is a member of the Bridge Security Advisors team, and he's also virtual CISOs to different organizations that is contracted through Bridge Security Advisors. In a recent poll, we really talked about, and the term virtual CISO that we find is really being used in many ways throughout the industry. And in a recent poll, about 55 responds that we tried to understand and try to level set what they thought a virtual CISO is. As you can see from this, the scores here that many times think it's an external part-time CISO, so helping small, medium business or helping in a CISO role part-time. Some people use a virtual CISO as an interim CISO, should, as we know, with the trying to find the right talent in the market and the movement within the market, it's also hard to staff the people. An average of a CISO is less than 18 months within an organization. Some people are using a virtual CISO to augment an in-house team. And then some people thought that a virtual CISO was almost a technology solution. We'll dive in today about where we're seeing the market going. How do you know if people may need a virtual CISO? What are the common things they may want to think about as we go through our question and answer section with Bill later today? We see in the small, medium business and really attack and everywhere within the market, the problem continues to dramatically increase in the mid-market. You have the cyber attacks in mid-market, they were up 490% in 2021. They continue to be on the rise. Many small, medium businesses are being attacked with ransomware and malicious attacks. It's really creating a lot of downtime in their business and financial impact in their business. Tighter compliance have changed and matured within the industry and forcing people to really adhere to compliance, sometimes on a state level, regulation and industry, and many times third-party compliance is coming within partners. So many small, medium businesses that are doing businesses with larger companies are forcing to maintain compliance through a framework such as NIST or ISO, or an industry regulation and compliance such as HIPAA and PCI. And we also have cyber insurance of the requirements and the validation that is needed within cybersecurity. Many times they have to have an attestation or any type of reference of how they're really handling their security policies and programs to show the cyber insurance company as they go through underwriting. So there's been a dramatic, sharper look of how you obtain cyber insurance. So it's really left with SMBs and medium enterprises, really three choices that we're finding in the market. Do nothing, then you really face the impact of the breach or the risk of the breach that could be very costly. Some estimates come up to 100,000 to $1 million or even more. They can hire a CISO, and in today's market, in a tight market with an ever-changing staff and CISO that's a short tenure and hard to find and large to compensate, they can hire a CISO should they have budget. Or we see many times the industry shifting in the medium enterprise market of leveraging a virtual CISO. And we'll talk about many ways of how we define at Bridge Security Advisors a virtual CISO, but then also talk about it is a use of technology. It is a use of being a part of your team. And as we go back to the later survey that I did, it really encompasses all parts of them. So many ways the industry is adapting a virtual CISO from the basic ROI and the return on their investment versus what they're gaining out of it and the talent that they can find in the market. As we wanted to really bring on Bill Lissy today to talk about some questions that we see around the market. And I know we talk to a lot of companies daily around how to leverage a virtual CISO. And it's important to know what type of questions they're asking and what do they need to consider. So, Bill, some of the most common ways companies are using a virtual CISO today. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on that today?
So the difference between having a virtual CISO or what other people call it as a fractional CISO is the ability to control cost as well as back reach into additional capabilities. So if I hire a CISO, it's very hard to find somebody, especially in a small business environment or mid-sized businesses, where you're going to get somebody who can do a little bit of everything, but not necessarily go deep into solutioning some of the security challenges. One of the values, streams associated with having a virtual CISO, so a fractional CISO, is that you can, as Brian said, control the cost. So if you have a full-time CISO, you're absorbing all the cost as a full-time equivalent versus what you may need. The other thing is, certainly from a business perspective, a virtual CISO can add value to the organization beyond just helping with the security strategy. And that comes from experiences in the particular vertical that you're delivering. So data analytics platforms, which is across a number of industries, and then in some industries that are very unique, like healthcare or financial services, understanding that landscape. So a virtual CISO can help your organization develop and implement security strategies, assess and mitigate risks, and ensure compliance with regulatory requirements.
Great. And did you see the transition, Bill, from a virtual CISO into a CISO? Is it seamless as we find today more remote workers that are everyone's virtual and dialing in and on the web and virtual teams today? Is that making that easier transition?
Absolutely. So workforces have transitioned in almost all industries. And so what that does is provide a wider range of prospective virtual CISOs versus a full-time equivalent. I have not found that there's any impediment to having a remote virtual CISO. Probably the most important thing is understanding the business and understanding the business's needs and helping the business to make informed decisions regarding risk management and compliance.
And many companies today go without a CISO and it's handled. Security is worn across many hats. So what is within the organization? We constantly get involved with medium-sized companies that one person's wearing many hats within the organization, so to speak. So how does that determine the need for the vCISO and how can that help alleviate some of the stress?
So some of the challenges, if I just get a technical security person, the challenge is not necessarily having the business acumen, understanding the different needs of the executives within the organization. So information security does not exist on its own. And the easiest way to explain this is the way ISO 27001 handles this is there are interested parties that have information security needs across the executive suite. And so the needs of human resources in protecting HR data, being responsive to internal requirements for HIPAA compliance, especially a lot of small and mid-sized organizations are self-insured, and so their HIPAA requirements are a lot broader. Dealing with the chief financial officer, being able to help the CFO to make decisions in regards to the cost of security versus the benefits to the organization, helping to implement and manage internal control over financial reporting. There's essentially security overlaps with internal control over financial reporting and the business's external financial statement auditors in the IT general controls. Being able to help the executives deal with managing risks across the enterprise. So it's really that issue that is a CISO level issue versus just executing security controls. And so one of the biggest areas is aligning security with the business objective. So I've talked with a number of businesses, especially from the standpoint of how does security add value in opening new markets? So I dealt with a mid-sized organization, business with the US federal government. In that case, they needed to comply with different things like NIST 800-171 or even FedRAMP. And so the cost of doing that versus the size of the market and how much that market's going to yield has to be a business decision across the enterprise. The one thing that I constantly explain is that security is not an IT problem, it's a business problem, and that's where the vCISO can help.
Yeah, and the vCISO, what we're finding, can integrate, as you mentioned, to legal, to shareholders, to the CEO, and other things to kind of communicate that back from security technology back into those business terms.
Yeah, a lot of mid-sized organizations are funded by private equity. Private equity has been pushing further and further to understanding what the information security posture of an organization is so that they can make decisions regarding risk and investments.
Great. Other ways that maybe we can impact from a virtual CISO, and I think we've already touched on some of the value of having that virtual CISO, but when they're looking for a virtual CISO, and as you see and you talk to CEOs, CIOs, and the business owners, what are the skills that they're most concerned about, and what do they find the most helpful?
So broad technical knowledge and understanding. I'm seeing a lot more expectations about investment in the cloud. So moving workloads to infrastructure as a service, using software as a service, and in some cases using platform as a service. They need assistance in understanding how they can secure those workloads and be able to explain to their customers how they're protecting those. Risk management expertise. Clearly, security is a risk problem. It's a business risk problem. And it's that expertise in helping the leadership to understand what that trade space looks like. Financial management, because making decisions in solutioning, so cost benefit ratios as well as cost effectiveness, what investments and where the organization should invest in security controls. Not everything is a technical problem, so it's a combination of people, process, and technology. A strong business acumen, an understanding of the organization's business operations, goals, and objectives. Communication skills are paramount. And so it's not just being able to talk at the technical level, but being able to translate the security issues into business speak. So you can't expect that many boards, other people who are investors, as well as the other executives within an organization are going to understand the technical speak. So technical speak has to be eliminated. Leadership and management skills, knowledge of the compliance and regulatory landscape, especially tying that back to an understanding of the organization and which of those apply. And then somebody who's continuously learning. I mean, technology is evolving at a pretty quick pace. I talked about cloud, but there's other issues like application program interfaces that have become fairly ubiquitous, containers, other things. So you want to find somebody who understands and is somebody who's a continuous learner.
And Bill, you mentioned how technology is changing. And initially, we always felt in security, it was going to be a better security device or the next generation of identity and management, the next generation of endpoint. We're seeing some automation and technology come into the vCISO role that I'll talk about. And I think it's important that that technology is coming along to really help speed up and make virtual CISOs more efficient, right? It's not just a one person that they'll have access and more automation at their fingertips to really leverage the talent of the virtual CISO rather than the administrative part of maybe a CISO would do. We talk about it's important to know how virtual security, the CISO or virtual CISO, how it's empowering the business, right? It's not only doing it from a compliance standpoint, but it's also doing it for an ease of commerce and how they can do more business with people. And I think it's important to know that we're seeing the compliance is not being just a, did you follow the rule or not, but compliance is being a right to do more business. And we're seeing that through trends as we sit in with companies today, that what the compliance means, and maintaining that compliance and maintaining that level of security keeps them safe, but also gives them the right business and the right security posture to do business with more people that'll drive their bottom line. When it comes to staffing, we take a virtual CISO connecting back to the organization. But I think we're finding many ways of it's not just one person. We're seeing it as a virtual organization that's making a more efficient impact into clients and clients' organizations. Can you touch on that, of how that our virtual organization and CISO organization is making an impact?
So from a staffing perspective, there's a couple of different focus points. The first is an understanding of what the roadmap looks like for the organization. So normally, as a vCISO, the first thing I do is understand what the current state is. And then there's the negotiation with what that target state's going to look like. Out of that comes a roadmap. And that's usually a combination of activities, those things that get done like writing policy, and those things that don't elevate to a full-blown project. Then there's others, depending upon the size of the organization, the scope, the complexity, the requirements, as well as the available budget, making decisions on projects. So some of those activities are projectized. So let's talk about two different things. One is getting to security to where it needs to go, and the investment. So one-time costs associated with getting security to a state that is acceptable to the business executives, as well as the customers and any potential regulators. Because one of the things we talked about is, why are we doing security, especially in mid-sized businesses? Because we're getting a lot of pressure from our business partners to be able to demonstrate. People won't sign contracts with us if we can't demonstrate a minimum level of security. So how much do we need to do that? Then there's the run the shop, okay? Things like where security is the process owner, like vulnerability scanning, incident response, application security. Not all organizations are going to need application security. So I can't make a ubiquitous statement, but at a minimum staffing level, there's usually a vCISO and then access to expertise that can be brought forward in order to solve some of the challenges for solutioning. So that's really how that works. The optimal is a vCISO and a security analyst who can then implement some of those projects, and it manages costs for the business. One of the values of a vCISO versus a CISO is the organization can better control cost of spend for implementing security and understanding exactly what's getting done.
And many times we talk about a virtual CISO service, Bill. It's not just a managed service. There's some flexibility and customization that the benefit of a virtual CISO service that you get. So help kind of elaborate a little bit from what's a managed security service versus a virtual CISO service. It's around customization, I would imagine. Would you agree?
Absolutely. So there are some managed security services that the vCISO won't do. Let's say we're talking about a SIM as a service and a security operations center. Those are specialized functions that are usually done outside. A vCISO representing a company like Bridge has partners that they can bring forward and make that acquisition process more streamlined, but ultimately there's a number of capabilities that can be brought in to facilitate the vCISO. Think of it as I talked about projectizing. So this gets to be a deck of cards that the organization decides what to spend on, when to spend on that, based on prioritizations, based on the business and the recommendations of the vCISO and the roadmap. Then managed security services can execute on those activities and projects in a timely manner, so just in time, and to a level to achieve the expertise. So I may not need vulnerability scanning and a security analyst to do vulnerability scanning on a continuous basis. But let's say I decide to do semi-annual, quarterly, or monthly vulnerability scans. I can have a managed service do that. The vCISO can help to interpret and help the organization make investment decisions on how to remediate or whether to accept risk. And then it becomes a symbiotic relationship as opposed to some potential contention between those service providers.
Right. And we're seeing, the trend I think we've touched on earlier about the virtual CISO has evolved. And the virtual CISO is not just an added person acting as a single point, that we're seeing more resources support that virtual CISO to make them more strategic and to make them more effective within that organization. And I think that's been helpful.
Yeah, I would say that the issue is knowledge management. If you hire a virtual CISO who is a standalone, really intelligent person, you're getting the intellectual property of one person. If you hire an organization to do that with a vCISO is essentially a front end, you have access to more capability, and it isn't just you get the broader expertise of the business behind them versus, what one person can bring to the table. So it's a business decision, and it's what an organization really needs to think about. What's the value that they want to get out of that vCISO, and then use that vCISO to help manage cost and against their strategic objectives.
Got it. And as we talk about evolving the virtual CISO in the next 10 or 15 minutes, Bill, I want to talk a little bit about the dashboard and what Bridge Security Advisors is delivering. And we all think about that virtual CISO team. We all think about trying to get more efficient resources. Our virtual CISO service that we deliver to companies today provides that real-time dashboard, automated and scanning at their request. It provides, as we see more and more shift to the Microsoft suite, a Microsoft 365 security score. It also leverages multiple frameworks. So if we think about the framework we're looking to deliver, we assess against 26 different points to make sure and how they're delivering that framework. And then it evolves around a whole scoring process. And I'll take you through kind of the wash, rinse, and repeat cycle that we talk about. But it's a dashboard that companies can look at real time. We can look at certain things as they're changing within their environment and have unlimited external scanning. It looks around the Microsoft security score, as I mentioned, and it provides actionable results and remediation. It also provides, in our virtual CISO service, can really talk around many times, many small to medium business enterprises have a lack of mature policies. So it allows you to more effectively and efficiently implement the appropriate policies that many times are needed. You look around, as we take around through our virtual CISO service, we have this onboarding questionnaire, and it's really understanding your business, but understanding the regulations, understanding what your business partner or third-party requirements are. If you, from a HIPAA standpoint, healthcare, if you're a retailer around PCI, or if you're looking to follow a general framework that you communicate to the street or to business partners around NIST or ISO. That in turn provides the baseline as you go into these assessments. It looks around business continuity, data protection. There's 22 different points and assessments that we can conduct, and it's all kept into a portal, and there's a lot of automation around if the policy is missing, what policy that then can be implemented, and suggestions for it that allows the virtual CISO to look at strategically around the business, but also quickly identify what is needed to change that security posture. And then we look at monthly stats and reporting and what are the remediations? What's the scans telling us? What is the overall internal network scans and other scans they may want to import? But it's also understanding and helping improve your vulnerability management solutions as it goes and maps back to compliance. And you have this overall dashboard that talks around what are the main risks that are open, what's been closed, etc. But more importantly, it's giving you actionable remediation. Many times I was speaking to a CISO last week, and we were talking about this virtual CISO service, and he's like, I don't understand what my vulnerability scans are telling me. It's not related to business terms. It's not connected to my compliance. It's not telling me any type of prioritization around it. It's missing that business connection. So as we look at remediation, our virtual CISO service looks at task and how to complete the task and what's the actionable thing to go do. So as you see around reviewing, as I mentioned, some of the tasks around, for instance, mapping critical processes and their related digital assets, that's around business continuity plan. Why is it critical? And why does it provide you if it needs to be done in the short term, midterm, or long term? So that automation of prioritization and then validated by the virtual CISO allows to do this. You're finding where the virtual security team comes in is many types of these alerts or remediation tasks require security skills to complete them. Through the virtual security team that we leverage with customers, we can go in and help secure those or help remediate certain tasks that can help improve and show immediate security improvement. As you see around, and then the task around testing executable code, and it talks around things to do around that nature. And as you go through remediation, we look at quarterly reviews, looking at your internal network scan, how you are mapping to compliance. Should it be ISO? Should it be HIPAA? Should it be a combination? Or in the NIST standards? And then looking at the attacker's view of your internal network scan. What's critical, what's high, medium, and low, and then providing your risk analysis around your website, and then the open tasks that have not been completed or the most critical and upcoming. So it's important to really keep that prioritization needed. And why this is important in a virtual CISO or leveraging a current CISO, knowing that when we're working with a current CISO on staff, many times they're changing. They could be leaving or coming into the company. And this provides a solid continuity plan of how we're working with their security organization. So the virtual CISO lead is connecting from the business owners, but also the security team has continuity and within a portal of what to do. So many times the new CISO is not starting over, but many times coming in and understanding the execution and planning and task ahead. And then we start look at a year and we're starting looking at a restart annually and just look again. So we have a plan from the week one and the initial assessment, going across your validation of the policies, looking at monthly hygiene, and then what's the remediation needed, checking it quarterly, and starting it annually. Again, back to the beginning. What's important is it's all customizable, that if someone would like to have quarterly scanning or monthly planning, or should they be going through a transition, we're seeing a lot of companies in their cloud first strategies as they go from legacy to cloud first, how important this is to provide that security posture on real time and the availability of information they have. So their policies may change. Their identity and access management policies could change. The business continuity can change. So as we're seeing more and more of the small, medium business enterprises adopting the cloud first or changing to a more automated tools and technology, this is helpful to provide that constant security posture and plan for the vCISO or the executive team to leverage.
Brian, I'd just like to add to that. One of the important things about having some form of metrics, key performance indicators, key risk indicators, is transparency. One of the things I said was security is a business problem, not a technology problem. And in many cases, let's be clear, the vast majority of breaches for organizations are due to human error, not some evil attacker on the outside. While we have to be concerned about those things, we also have to deal with business processes and as well as training for staff. And if you looked at that dashboard, it's being able to see what the status is for a number of those control areas. 61% of breaches where an attacker was involved were caused by third-party services, so who you're contracting with. And so the important thing about the dashboard is it gives visibility across the executive table, so there's a clear understanding of what those investments are and how they relate to the business strategy.
Great, thanks, Bill. As we round up kind of our initial talk today, and I appreciate everyone coming and listening to us, we talk about where Bridge can help and we talk about the packages, and this gives everyone kind of a ballpark of, you look at, as I mentioned earlier in our presentation, cost of a CISO is anywhere from 150 to 300,000 in the market going today. Many companies don't need a full-time CISO. So as you look at a level 1, you're looking at approximately not only 8 hours a month of virtual CISO, but 20 hours of SME experts and engineers that can help. And if you think about that investment of $72,000, $77,000 a year with setup, it's more palatable that customers can continue to address their security. But this is some of our packages that we have that includes the initial security assessment, the compliance and security profile, virtual CISO and the virtual security team, the scans that I mentioned, the remediation tracking, as well as policy development and policy implementation should they not need it, should they not have the appropriate ones, and the real-time portal access. There's also burst capabilities that many times, as an example, virtual CISO may take on a large strategic project, or maybe it could be an incident or something that's come up. We have additional burst capabilities that you can look at delivering larger contracts or programs, whether it be security awareness training, advanced security advisories that we talked around our main domains of identity and access management, cloud security, data protection, additional risk and compliance, managed detection and response services we could also offer, as well as malware readiness and detection. So Bridge Security being a full service security advisory and services firm, we're technology agnostic, and we are guided to the mid-market area. So we have cost-effective solutions that'll help customers like yourselves or organizations like yourselves navigate through the security and incidents that are happening today. Bill, any final words?
So organizations are finding it more and more difficult to ignore security. Mid-sized organizations who are looking to do business with larger organizations either have downflow requirements in their contracts with their customers, or the expectation, as I said, that they manage their business partners as well as their service providers is really driving the market. And being able to answer those questionnaires that come in from business partners or customers, being able to effectively reduce risk within the enterprise is really becoming paramount for organizations to be successful. So it's an opportunity for an organization to think about security in a different way.
Great. Bill, I appreciate you taking the time with us today. I appreciate everyone joining us today, and I hope this provided more information around our vCISO service and how vCISO services are really helping organizations today. I want to thank you. Again, our contact information is there. Our main number, as well as an email, should you require any questions or concerns, please reach out to us. And you can always find us on LinkedIn. Again, we appreciate it. Thanks again. Have a good day.